Icon presents Behind the Comic Book Podcast.
Hey everybody, it's Mr. 845 here, and we're interviewing another independent creator. This is going to be for our Icon Comic-Con, okay, which is November 1st in Fishkill, New York. So if you want to join us, check it out. Tickets are right now are on sale online for only $5 just to stop by, hang out with all the comic book creators that we can bring, comic book vendors and podcasters as well. We have a very fun time there. It's our 4th year, but first and foremost, we got to talk to the man of the hour right now. John Anthony, tell us, who are you and what do you do?
I'm John Anthony Chihak Soltero, or Jax, Tucson, Arizona native. I've been drawing for 40 plus years and doing independent comic book work for just shy of 20 years.
Wow. Awesome. Yeah, man. Like I like to start all my podcasts, especially for if nobody else watches any of the other video, I want to make sure they get your contact info or kind of like the links that you want to send out. So give me some of the links that you would want to send people so that they could kind of check out your work.
So both my Insta and Threads, Bluesky and YouTube are all Jax Loves Nachos,
Okay.
but Loves is L-U-V-S, so
Okay.
J-A-C-S-L-U-V-S Nachos.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
And we'll also make sure that they're in the links of the video so that way people can check it out. But let's kind of get into it. So the biggest question that I always ask creators and just business owners and stuff like that is, so what got you into art and into comic books?
Well, with art, it's just been a lifelong thing. I mean, for as long as I can remember, drawing on notebook paper, printer paper my mom would bring home from work. So art started when I was really little. For comic books, it really started in like junior high, probably 7th grade. I don't know where everybody is. We had a Circle K around the corner from where I lived, like a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
But back then, because I'm kind of dating myself, they actually sold comic books on the newsstand back then.
Okay.
And used to walk to the store, pick up stuff, because the newsstands just had random selections, right? It wasn't like when you go to the shop and they've got your books monthly. And I found a copy of Punisher War Journal number 44.
Okay.
Took it home, read it, fell in love with the storytelling, fell in love with the character. And that was kind of the beginning of the end with, my love of comics. And it's never wavered since in like 30 plus years. So
nice. Yeah. And so now you have your own comic book and you're also the artist of your comic book and you also write it, if I'm not mistaken. So tell me a little bit about kind of like, let's go into that.
All right. So for the past 20 years, I've been self-publishing, writing, drawing, pretty much everything. I started out with a series called Euthanasia, which was like a street level vigilante story that was like semi-autobiographical, where I was the protagonist, and it was edgy for the sake of being edgy because I was like this late 20s, like just thought that's what I was supposed to be doing. Did that for 10 plus years, didn't really get anywhere with it. And kind of by the end wasn't really having fun with it, and decided to give a story that I had wanted to do since 2012 a role. So by 2017, I started working on a book called The Bubba Patrol, which is about my dogs as superheroes. And the first promo for it came out with like issue 6 of Euthanasia, like on the back cover. Showed up at Phoenix, now Fan Fusion. Back then it was Comic-Con, and kept delaying it for weird personal reasons that we can get into if you want, because it's all part of the story. Yeah. But 2012 or 2017 hit, one of my dogs died, and I was just like, you have to do this story now. And so I started working on that story, did some crowdfunding, put the books out. And now, what is that, 8 years later, I'm wanting to kind of turn a corner and take my love of comics and horror and put that towards a graphic novel called Welcome to Pleasant Falls, that I'm hoping should be out, if not next year, probably late next year if I have my way. But chapter one is supposed to come out in another couple of months. So
Okay. Now,
yeah.
so I definitely hear you on the dog passing away. I had my dog last year, Optimus Prime. He was with me for 12 years. German Shepherd, Siberian Husky with the two different color eyes. Awesome dog. Loved me to death. He passed away the day before my birthday last year. So it wasn't a great birthday gift. So I definitely hear you on that, and being able to tell that story, especially when you have like great animals around you. So kind of take us through the storyline, like through that story. You know, you could kind of cut into parts. So I know you went into euthanasia, and then you kind of were skimming over the top of that story. So if you want, let's kind of go into it.
Well, I guess it kind of dates back to freshman year in high school.
Okay.
I had taken a number of different like workshop classes, Parks and Rec classes. My mom signed me up for a comic strip class where you learned how to like make a comic strip and tell a story in like 3, 4 panels. And when I got to freshman year in high school, I was a kid back in the day, before they had a name for it. I had like emotional issues, right? So now we know that it's mental illness and mental health and stuff like that. Um, but my mom's promise to me was freshman year, if I got through the first quarter of school without an incident, we'd get me a dog.
Okay.
And so got through the first quarter, went to the Humane Society 3 days in a row. It was a Monday. We went, and there was like a dog that had been, he was like 4, but he had lived inside his entire life. And they were like, well, you can't have him because you're going to have this dog live outside. And then the next day we went, there was some little like black and white poodles. And they were like, well, you can't have this dog because they're going to need to stay inside for like 3 months or whatever. And we came across a Chow Shepherd mix. Beautiful sable colored dog with a pitch black mask. And uh, I don't remember all the ins and outs of it, but ask my mom about it, and she's like, "You fell in love right away." We took her home, named her Cypress because I was also into hip hop at the time, still am, but like as a kid, you're like, "Oh, that's a cool name." Um, she was my best friend for almost 16 years,
Wow.
and in terms of the story, the Bubba Patrol, she shows up in the second issue as this legendary hero of the city that these dogs are going to work to protect. And she is the first Bubba. And her story like ties into the euthanasia story because she's part of the effort that rescued the character that's portrayed by, or I am portrayed as. And so it's very autobiographical in that sense, that this dog literally saved my life, like in real life, just making me feel loved and allowing me to understand that not only could I be loved, but that I deserve that love as
Wow,
well.
that's awesome. That's an awesome story. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, a lot of people have support animals now, right? I mean, you literally had like one of the first support animals that you could think of, because without that dog, and what was the name of the dog again? Cypress, right?
Yeah.
Cypress Hill is Cypress.
Yep.
So, without Cypress, who knows where you'd be, right? That dog probably definitely added a flavor to life. Because I'm just speaking on my part, but you could always fill in the blanks. But I've had dogs all my life. I mostly German Shepherds. I had a Chinese Shar Pei, a Rottweiler, um, uh, French Bichon Frises, two of them. Uh,
Yeah.
so I've had dogs throughout my life, but Optimus was my dog. Like I adopted him. Like the parents had a breed by accident, and they were like, "Hey, there's this weird dog that has two different color eyes, and it's a Siberian Husky German Shepherd." I'm like, "Dude, sign me up." So I definitely, he was my my yard buddy. You would go out in the yard. He kept me sane uh throughout like this whole time. So I definitely hear you on that. So take us through the story. So now you went from doing that story, now you went into a new storyline after the Bubba Patrol. Did I say it
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
All right.
So we did I say I did 5 issues of the Bubba Patrol. Did have some help uh with a couple of the issues. Somebody helped me ink like a quarter of issue 3, and then he like jumped in and did colors on issues 4 and 5. Did some variant covers and stuff like that. But I told the story that I wanted to tell. Like there's still a ton more to tell with these characters because since then I've gotten more dogs, and it's like, okay, well, each of these dogs should have their own introduction, whether it's short or long kind of thing. But wanted to tell the main story, and I ended it in such a way that I told myself, like, you know that line from Dark Knight Returns where he says, "This would be a good death, but not good enough."
Mhm.
Um, so when issue 5 finished and I had it in my hands, I was just like, this would be a good end if I never did anything else ever again. And I kind of got an itch. Like I'd been wanting to do other stuff, but I kind of got the itch to go in like full tilt other direction and do a horror book and take all the tropes, all the ideas, and give a different perspective on it.
Okay.
A couple of people that I know that are friends who've read the books, the Bubba Patrol, are like, so you went from this like really colorful, animated, wholesome, family friendly book to this like really dark and gritty horror story. And I'm like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean that's
There's a lot of story
yeah,
to tell.
yeah. So like the main focus with Pleasant Falls or Welcome to Pleasant Falls is kind of doing your traditional slasher survival horror, but there's parts of it where the characters are very meta and they're not aware that they're in a story. But when you're watching a horror movie and you're like, don't get in the car, like what are you doing? Like
Yeah.
that's the worst mistake you could make.
I think it's like
And
the State Farm commercial where they're like, "Let's go behind the chainsaws," and they're like,
yeah,
"What?"
and so I wanted to like give some of that commentary to it. So the main character, her name is Vanita. I also wanted to give like a different final girl. So I chose to make my final girl Chicana and a Cholita at the same time. So there's parts of this where she's walking around decked out in the Dickies and the Chucks and the bandana. Um, and she like somebody will like the one of the antagonists will roll up on her and be like, "Come on, we'll give you a ride home. Like, don't worry about it. Like, it's dark. It's gonna be pitch black and freezing in 20 minutes, and it'll take you an hour to get home." And she's just
Mhm.
like, seen that movie before, and it
Yeah.
doesn't end well,
Mhm.
and just kind of keeps on because I want her to be a different type of final girl to where you typically saw somebody who wanted to be in that situation and then had all this bad stuff happen. Whereas this character is self-aware enough to know, I don't want to be here. It wasn't my choice to be here. And she's her goal is to get out.
Okay.
And that means not being necessarily this altruistic hero where you see something happening and you're going to go respond to it, because I don't want people to be like, oh, she's a hero. Like
Mhm.
she's not about all that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
She's just kind of
So
like self-survival, that type of thing, right?
very much so. Yeah. I mean, what part of New York are you from?
So originally from the Bronx, but now I live upstate. But yeah, so
All
I
right.
kind of get it.
Well, like,
I
yeah,
work in
and the big,
Manhattan, so I can tell me, bro. I scan the subway every day when I go into the subway because I know of all the things that happen, stabbings, people getting thrown on trains. So I observe every single person that's on the train just because the train, like, hey, does anybody look like a threat to me? No, I feel safe. Okay, maybe I can put my guard down a little bit, but I'm still scanning. So, and especially if like there's a homeless or resident absent, however you want to call it now, person that doesn't necessarily have all their wheels on the car, if you will. I usually kind of tip my headset back a little bit and try to listen in just to see what can you guys be talking about, so that way I could, say, maybe I shouldn't be here. Let me go move to the next car, that type of thing.
Right. No, I get you. And that's so Pleasant Falls is a suburb that is like 50 to 100 miles outside of the city where all of the anti-hero verse takes place. The Bubba Patrol, euthanasia, the backstory for Venita takes place in Apex City.
Mm-hmm.
And what I wanted to do with Apex City, and some people like it doesn't, you don't get to see the city enough to like for it to be a character. But for me, it's a border town between the United States and Mexico, but it's akin to Tucson and San Francisco.
Okay.
I spent a week in San Francisco like 15 years ago, and I fell in love with that city because of like the culture and the art and how open it was. But at the same time, I'm like, I could probably make this city be a port somewhere. So it's got to have a waterway and it's got to have ease of access because we've also got to bring lucha libre somehow into the story because I had a villain in euthanasia who was he was a luchador, and he was the most famous white luchador who went to Mexico and put on a mask and became the man there, kind of thing. So
Okay. So now, I mean, I kind of hear a lot of Latino background, so I'm sensing some influence there.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. My both my parents are Mexican. My dad's like half. And there's so there and it kind of goes into this story with Pleasant Falls. Like I didn't identify it so much with euthanasia, but I remember one Christmas, it had to have been Christmas, where like the extended family comes over that you see once a year or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and they were like, "What are you up to?" And before I could answer, my mom's like, "Oh, he's making a comic book." And my aunt was like, "Oh, mijo, you should make them Mexican like us." And I was just like, "Yeah, yeah, that's a good idea." And I like wandered off. And I was so put off by it, not by the fact that they mentioned that, right? But I'm like, "You've never read a comic book in your entire life. Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna tell me how to like make characters?" But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Because here I am, I got green eyes. I got a European last name. I got light skin. I don't speak Spanish. That can be incorporated into this character because, what's the measure of somebody who's Latino? Like, are you brown enough for the brown people? Are you brown enough for the not brown people to see you where you are? And that's been something I've dealt with my entire life. So I'm like, why not make that a part of all these characters and make them kind of breathe life into that. So when somebody sees it, they're like, oh, somebody else knows what this is like.
Yeah, somebody knows that. Ramon Piñero. So I'm Blanquito, pero I'm not a No Sabo kid, if you will, but I speak Spanglish, so it's like New York Spanish. But as you can see, I'm white passing, so it's basically I kind of fit into both realms. So I definitely feel you on that. You kind of, it helps identify you in the sense of like this is all my traditions that I'm used to and I've done in my whole life. But then they're like, yeah, but you're not Latino enough. You don't speak Spanish, or you don't dance to music, or you don't eat the food, or something like that. And they try to alienate you out of the culture when you've like literally you have like an instant translator in your head speaking Spanish to you in your head, and then coming out it's English. It's like, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I just don't know the words in Spanish, but I understand exactly what you're saying. So
Yeah, it
so I
was
definitely
it,
get you.
it was funny. I had a job at one point where at times when I would work overnights, I was the only one there. And we had it was at a shelter and we had residents that like they only spoke Spanish. And so my Spanish got kind of passable at that point. And
Mhm.
these people appreciated the fact that I kind of learned a little bit, but like So when somebody said something to me, I would have to take it, deconstruct it, put it into the
Mm-hmm.
how you say it in English. Then I would say it in Spanish, but formatted it in English. So then they would have to take it and reconstruct it, and then they would kind of understand what I was saying. So
Yeah, I hear you,
uh,
bro. No, I completely get where you're coming from. So I know you have the stories, right? So where does the art come along? So I know that you design a lot of the arts. So now, do you construct the story first and then draw, or are you drawing and then bringing the story around that? I know some people do it either or.
so with Pleasant Falls, it started out interestingly enough as a parody before it turned into like a full dark horror. Um, I was having a conversation with the manager at a comic shop that's like a block away from my house, and we were joking around, and he said something like, "I always imagined that the Grimace from the McDonald Land players would like eat children." And so we started coming up with all of these like, what were the roles of all the McDonald's Land players in 5 minutes? And I like pay for my books, and I was just like, I'm gonna go home and write this down. And I came home and I started writing out everything that we talked about. And but then I started making them more human than like mascotty. And it evolved to the point where the presence of those characters still existed. Like there's the Grimace character, there's the Ronald McDonald character, the Big Mac character, the Hamburglar character, but they exist completely differently. And if people see that or know that, they'll be able to pick it up in the story. But I decided to start doing something a little different because with the Bubba Patrol, I mean, I have reference. I can look at my dogs and be like,
Yeah.
okay, here you go. But these characters all needed to have be fleshed out a little bit. So I just broke out my sketchbook, and I don't remember how many pages I put together like a binder that's like a concept art binder of pretty much all of the characters and like little notations drawn in it, and put that together with an ash can in like 2023. Um, and I was like, showed it to a friend of mine who was in animation, school for animation. I think they still are. And they were like, "Oh wow, you're really doing like a lot of character development with this." And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I need to be able to reproduce these characters as much as possible when I'm drawing them throughout the book.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I'm taking a look at trying to see some of the dogs that you have. So they're very cute, by the way. So in coming up with your comic book, you went to the storyline first. I just wanted to kind of just make sure that I kind of clarify. So storyline first, then the characters, or you kind of put the characters together and then you put them in this universe.
So, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't clarify that. So I kind of came up with like the overall idea that it would be based on a parody of McDonald's, and then did the character development, drew up what these characters represent. So I had the physical manifestation. Then I wrote a couple of outlines, like and what I wanted to do was just give myself like a basic beginning, middle, and end, and just be like, okay, well, how do I want this to end? And I kind of worked backwards from there. So I was just like, okay, this is a good ending. Where does this start? And then I
Right.
could kind of fill in. And then I went and I wrote a script, and the script was like, I'm looking at it right now. It's like 96 pages, but I've already added to it when I was drawing. So it's the finished product of the graphic novel will be over 100 pages.
Wow. Now, what made you want to go from concept, right? Like everybody has an idea, they want to put pen to paper, they want to draw it, but sometimes they want to keep it to themselves, right? What gave you the bravery to say, you know what, I want to share this with other people, so I'm gonna print it out, I'm gonna distribute it and see what people think about it.
Are we allowed to cuss on this channel?
It's up to you, man. This is your time.
Um, well, I've been doing, like I said, I've been doing this for 20 years. The first story, Euthanasia, not really that successful. There were people who liked the artwork, they didn't care for the story. Um, but it gets to the point where at least I feel it's kind of like fuck it, you know. Um, either I can I can pass or succeed or fail one way or the other, right? And I came up with a decision several years ago, like if I'm gonna fail, like let me fail on my own terms.
Yeah, yeah.
But if I'm gonna succeed, let me succeed on my own terms. And being an artist, whether you write, whether you draw, no matter what you do, like there's a lot of emotion that goes into that. And it's kind of like it needs to be let out. And for me, there's stuff that's probably going to stay really personal that I never put out, but that's not going to be a story like this. Like it may be like a piece that I do of like my family or somebody I love or something like that. But if it's a story, I want people to see it, like it, hate it, whatever. Like that's up to them. But I don't know. I guess I'm to the point where like I kind of don't care
Mhm.
in the sense that like it doesn't really phase me to do it. It's just putting in that work, which is a lot of work.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, like I've had some of the worst experiences you can possibly have at a comic book convention. So like none of that is going to get to me at this point.
Yeah.
Like I'm glad it happened earlier on because if that was happening now, like it'd be devastating,
Mhm.
right? You go into a panel where you have a panel and nobody shows up. Literally nobody shows up. And the other panel that was there before you refuses to leave the room. So like they're still in the back milling about and talking to each other. But so you sit there at the table for like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and then you're like, all right, well, nobody's coming in here. So I'm just going to go back, sit at my table, uh, do shows where you don't make any money, um, do shows that you find out were a scam and you've driven 500 miles um, essentially for nothing.
Mhm.
Um, so I've had some of the worst experiences you can have at a comic book convention or a show or whatever. And at this point, it's just like, you know, I can do it or not do it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, you know, so I run a Comic Con. It's called Icon. The biggest thing that I'm a lover of comic books in the sense that I like the original storylines of like Captain America, Iron Man. You know, kind of going through all of them, especially now that the MCU came out. It kind of relived a lot of the stuff that I was, always reading and stuff like that. And I really owe a lot of comic books to my capability of getting rid of my stutter. So I stuttered when I read when I was younger, and I used to read comic books, and that corrected a lot of the stuttering, especially since I have ADHD. I can't read a full paragraphs without rereading it like 5 million times. So I get it. So the reason why I made that Comic Con was for that very purpose, is for the love of comic books. And I have heard horror stories and I've heard that type of thing. So I kind of do something a little different in the sense that I really get a lot of participation from the artists and from the vendors, and I really promote them outside of my comic book convention. Hence why I'm doing this podcast, right? So if you can give a message to some of the people that are promoters, some of the people that kind of do their own thing in the sense of these smaller cons, what are some like key things as a vendor, as an artist, as a writer that you would want to see at these cons that could really support you and your industry?
Um, I think, I mean, I know the big names get people in the door, but giving that, opening that door for the smaller creators, not just myself, but like somebody who may be on the verge of breaking out. Like nobody does anything in this world on their own. There's no such thing as a self-made man. I'm a firm believer in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a real hard time asking for help. And I've been constantly trying to do this on my own. Like I want to build myself up because I don't know how to ask for that. I don't know how to ask for somebody to open the door just a little bit. That's all I need.
Yeah.
So I would just say like, um, what do you call that? Foster that. Like open that door a little bit for these creators because you never know who the next breakout star is going to be. You never know where the
John Romita, Jack Kirby, all the greats had their chance and they were given that capability. So
yeah.
all it took was somebody saying, "All right, we'll give you a shot."
Plus, like I know for myself, I'm going to be going to Phoenix Fan Fusion in a couple of months, and this is the fourth year in a row that they've given me a guest table. I
Nice.
wasn't counting on it this year. Like I hadn't heard back, and I was like, you know what? If they don't give me a table, that's cool.
Mhm.
They've given me a table 3 years in a row. They've given me an opportunity to meet new fans and to reach out to new people, um, and showcase myself. So if they don't, that's fine. And then last Wednesday, I get a message from like the guest specialist, exhibitor specialist, and he's like, "Man, I'm sorry it took me so long. We've got a guest spot for you if you want it."
Nice.
And I'm like, "Yeah, I want it." Like I wasn't counting on going, and I'm just like, "This is the type of stuff that is needed because I can't speak for anybody else, but I appreciate it on a level that one of these days, if I do make it big or one of my properties gets picked up or something like that, that I can look back and say, well, these people helped me out and they showed a path for me. And, I don't know if necessarily like the really, really big name creators, and again, I can't speak for anybody else, but I don't know if they appreciate being given, excuse me, a guest spot as much as I do, or as much as the next small person does, because it boosts us up
Yeah.
like nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, we have a couple locals here that I've given spots to basically
Give them, the capability, and they've gotten really like big in the area. Like Brian Gary Brown, Martin Zavala, who's actually in Kentucky, but he comes over with one of my comic book vendors, and he has a ball every time. We've also had Johnny Desjardins there as well, and we also have Tom Ryan, Ryan Santos. So we've had Jeff Brennan, Will Torres. So we've had like a couple of different types of artists there that are all kind of like breaking in, and it's important because you're exactly on point. If it wasn't for the capability of getting an audience, and even just a shot, how are you supposed to build that repertoire, that reputation, stuff like that, without getting a shot? So I truly am on point with you on that, and I appreciate that voice coming from somebody that's actually been through the circuit. So kind of going into your art a little bit more, I just want to kind of give people kind of a style. Are you a traditional artist, digital artist? Do you do pen to paper, ink? What's your path in art?
If I have my druthers, it's traditional. Um, the Bubba Patrol started out traditional. Issue 1 was pen and ink. Issue 2 was penciled and then inked digitally. It was all colored digitally.
Okay.
But I knew once I started to do Welcome to Pleasant Falls that I had to go back to doing it traditionally. And the reason is my digital stuff is a very clean line. And if it's going to be horror, this needs to have imperfections to it.
Mhm.
It needs to have that grittiness and rawness to it. And I have to say, man, like I've been having such a blast, like throwing these 11 by 17 pages down and drawing them out. And before I know it, like smudging stuff up when I'm working on it and getting like mad at myself for doing that. But then I'm thinking like, we'll just throw some white out on it. It doesn't have to look perfect. Like your lines don't have to be straight. That adds to the character of the
Yeah.
book. So if you gave me a choice, it's going to be traditional.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, just I forgot to mention, I mean, but like the logo that we have this year, every year I give an artist a different chance at making
The icon logo. So this year is Chris Mad, and it's horror themed. So it kind of fits interviewing you because
That's a sweet logo. I like it. I also like the color scheme. Purple's my color. So
yeah. So it's after Halloween, so it's November 1st, right? I figured why not have a Halloween celebration the day after Halloween, because a lot of kids sometimes can't have it on a Friday, so Saturday it is. So it brings kids because like I said, I started loving comic books when I was a kid. I want kids to kind of fall in love with comic books again. Everybody has social media, everybody has a phone in their hand, but when you hold a comic book, it's just a different experience where you're telling a story, you're sitting down, frame by frame, and you're kind of going through the lines, and you're like, okay, what's gonna happen next? Oh my God, and it really gives you that surprise. And then you read the lines and stuff like that. It just like I have a graphic novel of Captain America sitting by my bedside. I've read through it I probably say about like 5 times. My kids got it for me when I first started forming my family. They I'm a blended family, so my kids got it for me. They were thinking about me, and they know that I love Captain America, so it was kind of like that type of thing. But that's the reason why I kind of try to do the things that you're saying, horror theme, get some of the artists involved in traditional. So he penciled this originally. I really like the grittiness of the pencil, so I agree with you on that. But he was like, no, I don't want to put that out like that. So he did ink it a little bit, which saved it a little bit in the sense of making sure that the lines were kind of like there. But if I showed you the original one that he did, I really like that one better because of the broadness that it gave when you penciled it in. It just looked so gritty that you could say that guy looks like a zombie. He's gonna eat me, that type of thing. So I definitely agree with you on that. So now you've gone through the path of basically going through all these different types of books and stuff like that. Do you ever get burnout? Like, is this something where like you're writing, and then all of a sudden you're like, I just gotta stop, man. I gotta step away for a little bit. It's just too much. Or is this like you're so passionate about that you just keep trucking along? I'm just speaking from a creator's perspective, but I just want to get the artist's perspective on that.
So for me, I mean, yeah, I mentioned it before. I've obsessive compulsive disorder and bipolar 2 disorder. So there are times where I get so hyper focused on something or so separated from it that no matter what I do, I can't draw or I can't write. It doesn't matter what's in front of me, what's in my head, like I just can't do it. So I try to just roll with whatever's going on. If I'm able to continue going and crank out 10 pages of pencils or inks in a week, I'm not going to stop myself from doing that because some other people say, well, you should try to do it this way. And I'm like, no, because there comes times where like a week, 2 weeks, month goes by and I can't draw anything. I think I did the first 13 or 14 pages of pencils on Welcome to Pleasant Falls and set it down for over a year. So like this book theoretically should be done by now, right? But I got so inside my own head that I was just like, yeah, I don't need to do this. And I got stuck doing other stuff and cranked out a piece for for Tucson in 2023, Tucson Comic Con in 2023. And then that's really been the last original thing I put out. So now I'm just like, you've got to have new stuff to show people.
Yeah.
So like,
it's like the way of the world now is like, if you don't have anything new, then like you get forgotten, right? Because everybody's got like that 8-second attention span. So I definitely feel you on that. I'm trying to look at some of the artwork that you've done and stuff like that, and kind of try to look at some of the characters. You have all these different styles that you do in your art. Is there any particular style that you like more than
others? Because you have like kaiju, you have like people that you draw, or characters that you've drawn, different people from Mystery Theater 3000,
Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yeah, 3000. Yep. Yeah. And then a couple of dogs, stuff like that. So is there any particular style that you like more than the other?
That's a really good question. I think it depends on the day, quite honestly. Like it's kind of like my Mount Rushmore of favorite pro wrestlers or my Mount Rushmore of comic book characters. Like any given day, like number one could switch with number two. I love like cartoons is probably one of my earliest loves. Like
Okay.
animation is big for me. So, but animation varies so much. Like you've got this high level of like Arcane, right?
Hmm.
And you've got Akira, which is that's where the 28 comes from because that's Akira's test subject number. Um, and then you've got like Looney Tunes that has just this like real clean, simple line style, and
Yeah.
it's so. I mean, as much as I love animation and all that, like that's a tricky question. I could probably sit here for like an hour and still not be able to answer that question for
No,
you.
that's all good. So,
Yeah.
I like to ask a lot of these different questions just because if people don't know you, it kind of helps them understand you as an artist, you as a writer, and you as your inspiration so that people could kind of understand, if they want to support you, they could understand the idea behind the book, right? A lot of kids are out there, even some grown adults that they they have the idea, they want it published, they want it. What is the best advice that you can give somebody that's on the precipice of drawing that art, coming up with that writing idea or something like that that would kind of help them in doing what you do?
I would say, I mean, be as organized as you can in terms of setting things up for success as you can. Um, Honestly, in this day and age, with the internet and all these different platforms for you to be able to share your art, share your thoughts, um, there's Webtoons, Tapas, like you could open a website, you could put it on Facebook, Instagram. Luke McGrary um, does like his strips on Instagram, and you swipe through till you get to the last one that has the entire story on it together. But he tells a story in like three or four panels. Like, I was actually just thinking about this yesterday, and with the advent of AI, which I hate with a burning passion, um, there's really the only thing gatekeeping somebody from telling their story is themselves, right? So if you want to tell a story, tell it. There's nobody that says there's no rules in how to write the story. There's no rules on how to draw the story. There are rules on how to write the story. It's for that you want your characters to have a good voice. But if you know you're gonna fail a couple of times, like that's okay as long as you're willing to keep going after you fail. But I would say, yeah, if you have the idea, it 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 sounds stupid and it sounds easier said than done, but just do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Nike
there's
says it all the time. Just do
yeah,
it. You know.
the idea that like your artwork's not going to be good enough or it doesn't fit the genre or something like that, like just look at any comic book store's independent section and you look through, you know, 50 different titles and you will not see the same art style. So like you look at Top Shelf, you look at is Top Shelf even around anymore? Um,
I haven't been in that realm in a while, so
You know better than I would.
but I mean, like Something is Killing the Children, which is my favorite comic
Hmm.
right now, has a way different style from this book I just finished called Zawa,
Hmm.
Belly of the Beast, and has a different style from I'm trying to think of independent stuff. From Scud the Disposable Assassin, from the Max, um, from anything by God, I think it's Andrew Robinson who does stuff for Top Shelf, like Box Office Poison, like Too Cool, like just there's so many different ways to tell a story from a visual standpoint.
yeah. I mean, and the style, depending on it's all in the eye of the beholder, right? I mean, some people may hate your art, and then some people may
Love and fall in love with your art. It all depends on their taste. I mean, that's the beauty about art is the fact that it's the interpretation of the person that likes certain different types of art. I mean, some people didn't like Rob what's his last,
Liefeld,
yeah, Captain America from the 90s, you know, with the big chest. Some people loved it. I mean, you know, everybody has their own thing. But you know, that's the point of it, is that everybody has their own style that they like, and they want to collect and support that. So you know, that's great advice for people. You know, I really do appreciate you, John, Anthony, coming on and letting me interview you. Is there any little bit of tidbit, like where can people find your books, if not necessarily in a bookstore or a comic book store? Where could they find the books? Again, just to kind of remind people.
My Etsy shop. I think it's etsy.antiheroversecomics.com or something like that. I'll give you the link
Give me the
to
links.
post. Yeah.
Make sure that we have that. You know, is there any other last tidbit of advice, or even just a closing that you would want to give somebody, just based on your total history or total chat, that you would want to leave people at the end of this interview?
That's another good question that I could probably sit here and ramble for like an hour and a half. I think I just, for myself, like if you're gonna take a look at my books, like they're real and at times they're raw and but they're very, very personal. So there's a lot of myself that went into it, whereas somebody else is doing this for a paycheck and it's a job. I'm doing this. I'm still here almost 20 years later because I love it. You have to love it to keep doing it and get tendonitis and strain your eyes and hurt your back because you're hunched over the table. Um, I think just realize that at least at some point, everybody who is in this game got in this game because they love it. And if we can help bring that passion back, like get excited when you see that book that you love, get excited when you see that creator that you've wanted to meet. Like it it matters, man. Like I got to meet a bunch of people last year at Phoenix and I went as a guest and I didn't have great sales, but I had the most fun I've ever had at a convention because I got to meet all these people and I had a great experience meeting some artistic heroes and just getting to talk to them and tell my story. So, yeah, I just like, don't be ashamed the fact that you love this.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. Jonathan, thank you very much for allowing me to interview you. I really do appreciate it. Again, everybody, this is the Behind the Comic Books podcast. It's really to kind of
Delve into different artists, different comic book creators, to kind of find out like their back history, kind of find out more about them, to bring them to light. It's all a part of what I do at Icon Comic Con, November the 1st, from 10 to 4, $5 tickets if you go to iconcomiccon.com. These episodes will be airing on Mondays at 12 noon. So we'll have them on YouTube, we'll have them on Facebook, and partial episodes on Facebook, partial episodes on Instagram, because they don't let me put the whole thing down. Let's go, Facebook. What's going on? But YouTube will let me post the whole video. So definitely check out. The best way that you can support is share, like, and comment on any of the content that you see here, as well as the artists and comic book creators that we interview. Jonathan, again, thank you very much, bro. I really do appreciate it. And we'll talk soon.
Thanks, man. Thank you.